Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Follow Lead Podcast, a Christian leaders podcast powered by EBEB Solutions, energy benefits for every business. Go to EBEBsolutions.com today and get your free energy audit. It will literally save you time and money. Friends, welcome. There are so many new people in my community. Let me just say hello and thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to subscribe either on YouTube or Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. And hey, leave a comment, a rating, review. I would love to get your feedback. And if we haven't met yet, my name is Tony and I am the host. I'm so excited to bring you this intriguing conversation with my friend, Monica Tanner. She's a relationship coach and author of Bad Marriage Advice. We talk about what it really takes to build a thriving marriage, especially for entrepreneurially minded people and humans, and why it all matters. We talk about her parents' divorce and how it became kind of one of those catalysts to her desire to help others. We talk about healthy communication and consistent effort, why it all matters. If you are someone who's type A, who's constantly pushing forward, you are going to love this conversation. And hey, don't forget to stick around for the 3 and 5. 3 practical takeaways in 5 minutes or less. It's at the back end of today's conversation. So now, a quick word from our partners, and here's my conversation with Monica Tanner. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited to have my long-term friend. You were one of the very first guests I ever had on, Monica Tanner. Monica, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast.
That's so cool. It's my pleasure. I always love conversations with you.
So you have done so many different things in your life. You have been focusing on relationships since as long as I've known you, but you've also created content as a podcaster and a writer and a speaker, and of course, a relationship coach. I'm curious, how would you describe the calling that God has placed on your life?
You know, it's so interesting because I was just telling this story earlier. My parents divorced when I was 12. And before that point, I was such a happy-go-lucky, like no problems in the world kind of girl. Like I just, flitted around the house and thought I was a princess and I would meet my Prince Charming someday and everything was going to be great. Like there were no problems. And then after the divorce, I feel like I got really hyper-focused on what makes people happy in relationships. Mm-hmm. How does happily ever after even work? And I remember feeling really disappointed because I would look around at couples around me, like my friends' parents and family members, and couples didn't seem happy. And I was like, how did I miss this? And so I kind of dedicated my life to figuring out what makes couples, have a healthy, thriving, fun relationship. And so then I got, I felt like I had all this knowledge and all this wisdom and I studied it in college. And then I got married and I was like, whoa, this is a lot harder than I thought. And, we had our own struggles in our marriage. We are very, very different humans, my husband and I, but we've been married for 23 years. We've overcome a lot. We've done a lot of work, put a lot of effort and intention into our marriage. And I feel like our relationship is stronger and better than it's ever been. And I just want that for, the people that I love. And I include the clients that I work with in that realm. Like, I just feel like happily ever after is possible. It is attainable, but it's not going to happen on accident. Like you've got to put in the work, but then miracles can happen. It's just incredibly amazing.
Now, I know that you have a heart for entrepreneur couples, especially. I've seen that in your work over the years. And I'm wondering if you could talk to some of our executives and entrepreneurs who are listening, and maybe they just feel overwhelmed with one more thing to be intentional about, right? Because it's like, hey, I have to do all this work at home, but now that all this work at work, but now that I'm home, I don't want to work so hard. And so what's the first step in creating an intentional marriage that leads to happily ever after?
There's so many directions I could go with this. I do have such a heart for entrepreneurial couples because my husband and I started a business together 22 years ago and sold it last year. And so we have a lot of experience in this realm. And again, we're so different. We operate differently. We think differently. We have different opinions and ideas of how things should go. And so we had to learn how to communicate very well. But I think where I would go with this is if you have entrepreneurs that are listening, especially men, it's a different, and this, nobody talks about this. I haven't heard anyone talk about this, but it is a different skill set. What will make you successful in business versus what will make you successful at home. And, when you think of an entrepreneur, you think of a visionary, you think of a problem solver, you think of, somebody who is very capable and knowledgeable and can automate things and delegate things and like really make things happen. Like they make money, they're successful because, they come up with systems and processes and envision, and they rally people together for a cause, and they're very competent and capable. And then they come home and their spouse is like, can you take out the garbage, wipe Johnny's runny nose? Oh yeah, he has to be at soccer practice. Like nobody is like, hanging on their every word, telling them they're amazing. And when you get home and into the chaos and you've got, a 2-year-old running around and there's diapers to be changed and toys everywhere, there's no solving that problem. There's nothing at home that can be solved or automated. It's about being present. It's about being, connected with your partner and just looking at each other across the room with that look that's like, this isn't going to last forever. I'm right here with you in the chaos. It's not going to last forever. Like, I love you. Like, we can do this, right? Like, how can I spell you? How can I make this easier for you? That's the skill set that you need at home, but that's not what's going to make you successful in the workplace, right? And so that is really important to understand. And so I've met some overwhelmingly successful men that make a hash of their personal life.
Is that a skill that can be strengthened? Is it empathy? Is it curiosity? How would you describe what that is? As now there's a whole bunch of people who are listening and going, oh my gosh, Monica just absolutely read my email. Right? Like she read my mind, she's stepping on my toes, all the expressions. Like what's that skill that needs to be strengthened so that when we come home, it's just not a disaster?
Yeah. So that's the beautiful thing, because relationship is a skill set. It's not something you're born with or something you're not. It's something that you can learn, practice, and perfect, like honestly. So, I teach a lot of, especially these powerful men that I work with, to create some physical representation of changing roles. So like this is going to date me. So I don't know how old your listeners generally are. Hopefully they're, a little bit older and they've heard of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. But if you've ever seen that show, Fred Rogers comes in the opening kind of credits or whatever. He comes in and he's singing a song and he takes off his sport coat and he puts on his sweater, his house sweater, and he takes off his loafers and he puts on his house shoes. And he's like physically changing forms so that he can be like present and with us and teach us the lesson of the day. And, so whatever he was doing outside of the home, he kind of sheds that off and becomes Mr. Rogers. And so if you can figure out a way to kind of physically transform into a different, persona when you get home, and then you learn the skills that are necessary, which are, you're right, a lot of curiosity, a lot of empathy. It's, suspending judgment. Like when you walk into your house and it's like a mess, there's toys everywhere, dinner's not ready, your wife looks frazzled, your kids are like taking over the place, your first instinct is like, what in the heck has happened here? You want to solve all the problems. You want to like make everything chill. Like I remember my husband for a long time. I remember saying to him, you have to say one positive thing when you get home before you just like break into what the heck is happening here? Why isn't dinner ready? Why are our kids running around naked? Like, you have to say something that you're grateful for, like right when you walk in the door. And it changes your perspective. But that empathy piece of, how are you doing? How can I help? Like, you must have had a hard day. Tell me about it, right? That type of curiosity, of compassion, of empathy. And there's nothing to solve. Like spouse might go down a laundry list of problems that there were all day long. And like, it's really important to be curious, like, are you looking for solutions? Are you looking for a listening ear? Do you want somebody to just tell you that they love you? Like, what is it that you're looking for in this moment? Right. And that's hard for successful business owners who are like, oh, I can see like 12 ways to automate this and solve this problem. And if you just do this and this and this, that's not going to get you very far, I promise.
I think that's such good wisdom. One of the things that you mentioned in your story that I wanted to drill down on is that you and your husband sold a business last year. And I want to drill down on that because I think a lot of couples really struggle with making those life pivoting decisions together. And I think they struggle with the idea of like, is this the right time? Or, you know, in my world, we might call it like mutual discernment. But how did you guys, or how do you coach couples? Like, okay, now is the time to, how did you know? And then what kind of matrix did you use to help? Maybe not the specifics of that situation, but to matrix that you use for those big decision-making ideas?
You know, it really is a lot of communication and a lot of understanding and, you know, kind of putting yourself in each other's shoes, so to speak. So we started a business together in, I want to say 2002, I think. And we ran that business together for many years until I had my third baby. And, you know, after I had a couple of kids, I kind of went from, you know, front facing customer service to like behind the scenes, like payroll and accounting and things like that. But I will never forget this feeling of like, you know, my husband coming home and I'm like bawling every day. I'm like trying to nurse the baby and I've got a 2-year-old running around without their diaper on and, you know, this preschooler who's like jumping off of things. And I just felt so out of control and I'm trying to make payroll. So I'm like nursing and like, you know, figuring out hours and like there were deadlines that I just couldn't meet anymore. And so I just remember just pouring my heart out to my husband and being like, I don't know what needs to happen here. I don't know, you know, what the next step is, but I can't do this anymore. Like either put me in the funny farm or hire somebody to take me out of this company. Right. And so we did have to make that like tough decision together. And so for the rest of, you know, I mean, that was, well, my daughter who was nursing is now almost 17. So, I mean, that was like 15, 16 years ago, we had that conversation.
Wow.
And he got me an accountant, and I always joke that was like the best Christmas present I ever got. It was like the bookkeeper coming in and, you know, me handing everything off and just like saying goodbye to that part of my life. But, you know, so he ran the business for several more years, and I could tell that he wasn't fulfilled. Like he wasn't having to work very hard. Like it just, the business kind of ran itself, but, you know, he went in every day and, you know, put out fires and did the things that he needed to do, but he wasn't being challenged. And there was a local company that was really headhunting him. They really wanted him to come work for them, be on their leadership team and help kind of, you know, mold the next few years of their business. And at first he was very uninterested. Nope, I've got my own thing, you know, but as time rolled on and he kind of, you know, was looking at everything and like looking down, staring down the barrel of like selling the business and retiring. And then what would he do? We're so young. And he finally like kind of opened the door to that. And as he was learning about that local company that really wanted him, he would share with me his feelings. And I would just get really curious, like, and I'll admit we were super nervous. Like we were trying to figure out a way he could go to work for this company and also manage the business, or like how I could step in and help. We thought about a lot of different things, but ultimately it was his decision. But I was very supportive because I understood all that went into that decision.
One of the things that you write about a lot is this idea about regular communication. And the importance of that is clearly modeled in that story. If you're talking to a couple that's having a hard time getting connected, what are some of the disciplines of good communication that maybe we could steal from you or from your research or some of the stuff that you see amongst couples? Like what works really well for a couple that maybe isn't in a groove already? I mean, obviously if you're in a groove, it's different, but if you're not in a groove currently, maybe you're in a season of life where you got littles, or maybe you're in a season of life where you're building a business or any of those things and you're not in a good groove. How do we communicate better?
Yeah. Well, I will give you my kind of 3% rule. And I hope that those listening will not discount it for its simplicity, because it is a simple, simple process. Now, of course, communication, you can learn to be a better communicator, but most people, especially I'm sure in leadership positions that are listening to this, they're pretty good communicators. You just have to decide, right? And so my 3% rule is that if you will spend 3% of your time communicating, connecting with each other, it's incredible what will happen. And so 3% of your time. So what I love about time is the great equalizer. Like nobody gets more or less time. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter how much you can bench press or how many important friends you have. Like literally, you can't buy more time. Everyone gets the same amount. And so you just have to be conscious and intentional about how you use it. So 3% is if there are 1,440 minutes in a day, which there are, if you will spend 20 of those minutes connecting with each other at the end of the day or in the morning or after dinner, whatever you have to do. My husband and I love to go walking, especially when the weather's nice. But if the weather's not nice, we can go on a drive. And we've done this through littles. We have bigs now, but we can just walk around the block, or we can put on a movie. You can put a movie on for little kids and go in your room, no distractions, like leave the cell phone somewhere else and just communicate and connect for 20 minutes. Ask each other questions where you're getting to know each other's inner worlds, like get really curious. And it's not like, what'd you do today? It's like, how did you feel today? Who did you learn from today? What really excited you today? Did you read about or talk to somebody that was really intriguing to you? What's stressing you out? Like those types of questions are really key to getting to know each other every single day. So that's 20 minutes a day. And then I always like to say, end with a kiss or a back rub or a nice, long, deep hug, some physical representation that you have connected. So that's 20 minutes a day.
One of the things that I appreciate about your work is you're really open about intentional intimacy and specifically physical intimacy. So my wife and I have read a lot of your stuff over the years, and we have an expression called NST, non-sexual touching, right? And it's kind of an adaptation of some of your stuff that we've kind of taken in over the years. Is like, what have you learned about physical intimacy as it relates to connecting the marriage? Because I know that you're really passionate about helping couples connect in that way so they can connect in every other way.
Yeah. So if you will attach NST to those 20-minute sessions every single day, that is so like centering and calming and connecting, like whether it's a kiss, a hug, a shoulder rub, a foot rub, just tracing each other's arms, whatever it is, whatever feels really good and connecting to you. If you'll combine that 20 minutes every single day, you're connecting emotionally and connecting physically every single day. So that's daily. Now, weekly, if you will spend, so there's 168 hours in everybody's week. If you will spend 3 hours together on a date night once a week. Now, this is going to be, you want to do something fun together. It doesn't have to be expensive or elaborate or far from home. It just has to be intentional. Like it goes on the calendar. It's just as important as your dentist appointment, as, that client meeting. Whatever, it goes on the calendar. My husband and I have a rule. It can slide around, like if a kid's sport comes up or something like that, but it cannot be erased. So I want you to spend 3 hours weekly, and that's doing something fun and, just carefree. It's like kind of reigniting that dating energy, like ask each other questions, talk about things that interest you and excite you. These are like kind of the things that I want to stick out to you, even though they don't have to be elaborate. But when you're sitting on the porch swing, when you're really old, like you laughing about those little date nights that you made sure you did every single week, right? So that's date night, and that's going to include some more sexual touch, right? Like hopefully that opens you up emotionally. You really feel connected. And whether you have littles and you ask the babysitter to make sure the kids are in bed, or, sometimes we just sneak around because we've got teenagers running around our house all the time, right? But they're doing their own thing. So we just lock the door and do our thing. Date night, that should be a more sexual connection. And then once a year, like a 3-day vacation. It doesn't have to be far from home, but there's 365 days in a year. So spend 3 of them doing something really fun and memorable together. Again, you want to be thinking about those trips when you're sitting on the porch swinging when you're really old. And you can get creative. You can go camping. You can, find a hotel room in town. You can send the kids away and just do it at home. Like there's so many ways to do this, but that's the time you're going to dream together. You're going to evaluate like where you're at in your relationship. You're going to get real sexy because that's your time. So that is the 3% rule. If you will spend 3% of your time really intentionally on your marriage, there's nothing going to rip you apart. You will know each other. You will have communicated. You'll feel connected. That's like the magical formula.
I love it. Your latest book, Bad Marriage Advice, it's all about debunking myths. And I love to read dedication pages. And so I'm going to read the dedication page to this book for the bold ones here who are listening. And I'm going to ask you to just drill down on it. It says, "To my son and his beautiful bride, may your love story be full of laughter, grace, and grit. And for every couple brave enough to do the work, remember that the best stories are the ones you write together. May you find joy in the journey, strength in the struggle, and the kind of happily ever after that's built, not wished for."
It sounds so good when you read it.
It is good. It's so good. You did write that. Tell me about dedicating a marriage book to your son, who, as we record this, has been married for just a couple of months. But tell me about that process.
Yeah. So, my son at the tender age of 21 years old came to us and was like, "I've met the one, like I want to get married." And my husband and I were both like, "Oh my gosh, but you're so young." And she's awesome. We absolutely love her. But I felt very kind of panicked when he was like, "Okay, I'm ready to propose." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have so much to tell you." So I sat down to just write this little note, kind of like a mother's love note to her son, who's about to make this incredibly important life decision. And it really just turned into a book. And it was so easy to write initially because I remembered that my husband and I got married. We were 22. We were a little older, but I remember so many people having really good marriage advice for us that turned out to be disastrous. But it took us a long time to learn and sift through it. And so I felt like what I was writing is people will tell you this, people will tell you that. The culture tells you this, all of these things. And I was like, here's the problem with that mindset. Here's a better way to do it. And so it just kind of turned into that book in that format, and it was really fun to write. But what I love is one of the concepts that I talk about in the book is how relationships are a process of harmony, disharmony, and repair. And so when I use those words grit, and when I talk about, having courage and, writing, really digging in and writing that love story, it comes in the repair. So there's going to be challenges. Just plan on it, right? Don't be surprised when a challenge pops up, when you disagree about something, when you're having the same fight over and over and over again. It doesn't mean anything has gone wrong. It means here's a great opportunity for us to grow together.
In the introduction of the book, you talk about eating crackers in bed. Can you share that? It's such a fascinating aside for me as I was reading through the book. I was hoping that you could just kind of share a little bit about that story and what you've come to assume that that's meant. And we've talked a little bit about it already, but I think it's a great story.
Yeah. So it's really interesting because, it was a total stranger that married us. We didn't know him at all. He had a conversation with us for about 20 minutes, and then we went in to kind of do the ceremony, and he gave his advice and kind of take on marriage. And he gave us one really fantastic, phenomenal piece of advice that served us so well in our marriage. And that was to pray together. every single night, pray together and pray for each other, which is so important. But then he talked about eating crackers in bed. He's like, and he's like, don't be afraid to share a box of crackers in bed. And I wish so badly that I could have been like, wait, time out. What are you even talking about? Why would we eat crackers in bed? Like crumbs, gross. Like and I never had the opportunity for him to clarify. So I've just kind of made it up, is that he meant like, have fun together, laugh at the end of the day, do something, a little bit spontaneous that, you wouldn't otherwise do. And so that's what I think about those daily connections, is just, those are your crackers. Like, share a box of crackers, like talk about what's going on in your day and don't worry about the crumbs. Like, they'll bless you. So that's the cracker story.
It's funny because as I was reading that, I was like, I bet he means like, just give yourself permission to be messy, right? Like, and just like to do the kind of the unthinkable thing that, like, because eating crackers and bread sounds so terrible to me.
Right.
Like, I don't know about that one, but it's a great story to to really dive into the topic. And it's such an appropriate story, because one of the things that you do in the book is you take kind of a myth, right? Something that people say all the time, and then you kind of give the reality to it. So each chapter has a different one. Like, for example, from chapter 1, the myth is find someone who completes you. In your translation is that you're not whole on your own. But the reality check is that and this is what you write, you're waiting for someone to complete you. You're setting both of you up for disappointment. A healthy marriage is two whole people choosing to grow together, not two halves trying to make a whole. Again, really simple concept, but with some profound truth. How did you decide what myths? Because there are so many myths in marriages, as I've learned over the years, and you have as well. Like, how did you decide what got in and what didn't? Talk to me about the creative process.
It's a great question. First, I want to share a story that talks to that first chapter that it didn't make the book, but I remember when my husband and I first got married, I grew up in a Jewish family. And so I didn't have a lot of experience with Christmas. He grew up in a very devout Christian family, and Christmas was huge for them. And so I remember thinking, this is going to be fine because he'll just kind of be in charge of Christmas. Like, he knows how to do it and it's fine. But the first probably 5 years of our marriage, I would literally have panic attacks when it came to Christmas, because it was like, I just leaned on him to complete me in that area. I didn't, I had some ideas that I thought would be cool to try, or traditions or things like that, but I just kind of let him lead the way there. And it was so difficult to just not feel like I had any contribution there. And so it wasn't until I was like, hey, why don't we try this? Or, maybe the kids would really enjoy something like this, or I read about this, or, my friend Emily was telling me about this tradition I think we should try that would be really cool, until I could really value myself and my own opinion about things, and be like, that's when Christmas became magical. That's when Christmas became a compilation of the two of us together, his traditions and mine together for the benefit of our, entire family. That was the magic of Christmas. But that's a really good example of, I think, how people kind of sometimes think it's okay, we'll just, lean on his experience or whatever. I needed to find someone who knew about this because I didn't. And so, yeah, I think when you asked about the creative process, I mean, that really was it. It was basically me kind of looking back in my memory, and ChatGPT did help me with this book. So, sure. I mean, if you're reading it and you're like, that sounds like chat. Well, chat helped me brainstorm, but really this was my experience. I wrote down all of the things that people said when we got married. All of that advice came from somewhere, either a romantic movie, or someone that came through the line, or a religious leader, or somebody who had great intentions, who wanted to help us have a great marriage. And I leaned on that, okay, well, I don't know anything, I've studied marriage and I want to make it great, but you guys have more experience than I do, so I'm going to lean on you, right? And so, but all of those 15 things turned out to be hard lessons that we had to learn.
Yeah.
And so like I would put in my stories and then I would like kind of talk about how I thought about those things. And then I would send it to chat and be like, can you make sense of this? Like it was kind of like
Yeah.
you know,
It's a ghostwriter, right? It's like an editor and a coach kind of deal. Like this is
totally.
yeah.
So I feel like I would just brainstorm. Like I would just kind of like open brainstorm, like thought, what's it called? Like free flowing thoughts about whatever topic. And I'd put my stories in there and then, then I would send it to chat and then chat would send it back. And I was like, this is like way better. And then of course I would make my edits like, okay, well, I don't really mean that. And whatever. But it was really fun. It felt like I had a buddy that I was kind of like, bouncing ideas.
As a solopreneur, I do that all the time. Like and if you haven't read AI Driven Leader by Jeff Woods, 10 out of 10 recommend it for every leader to read. AI Driven Leader. And it talks about prompting and just how to use it as more of a thought partner, which sounds like you're already doing in a lot of ways. I did want to ask you this, and this is just personal, right? Like, because you're a little bit further ahead in me in the parenting journey in terms of like, now you have a kid that's married and I have a kid who's a freshman who, he can't get married while he's in college because it's where he goes to school at. It's got some rules about that stuff. He's at the Naval Academy. So you can't be married, can't have a kid. That's the rules in order to keep your scholarship. Right. And so, which is fine, whatever. But I know he's probably going to get married when he gets out of college. And I'm a coach and you're a coach. And so how do you deal with when you watch your son and your daughter-in-law, who are both wonderful people, but you could make their lives easier? Right. As a coach, I often think like I could speak into this and it would be helpful. Right. Like I have some experience around these things. I wrote a marriage book back in 2014. I've done a lot of premarital counseling. Like this is an area I spent a lot of time in, not as much as you, but a lot of time. How do you wrestle with that?
I think my first like bullet point of advice for like parents who have kids of marrying age is to decide already to love their spouse, whoever it is, because it's a very rare case when your kid is actually going to listen to you. I mean, they might think they will, like they might come to you at some point and be like, what do you think? But the reality is, the hormones take over, they fall in love, they don't really care what anyone thinks. And so you can make their life harder by just deciding to love, even if you see red flags, which I didn't. I was so grateful. I loved my boy's choice, but there were members of my family who were like, "Oh, I don't know about her. Is she going to fit in? Like, I don't know." And I was like, I don't care. I love her with my whole heart. Right. Even long before I met her or spent time with her. And so I think that's like originally you want to be on the right side of that. Even if they end up hurting your kid, even if it turns out to be a disaster, you can make that easier and a softer landing if you just love them. And as far as advice goes, I mean, I wrote a book. So like, I figure if it becomes a bestseller and like so many people are like thinking it's awesome, then maybe they'll think it's awesome too. I don't know.
Is the goal then, do they know that you dedicated the book to them?
Yeah. So it was really quite funny because I wanted the book to be like their wedding gift from me to them, so I wanted to be ready for their wedding. And I ended up giving a speech at their luncheon. And I was like, turns out you guys weren't even engaged long enough. It takes longer to publish a book than you guys were even engaged for. So they know it's coming, it was like I was trying to keep it a secret, but then all of my friends who have published books are like, you got to start talking about it on social media. Like you got to, and of course my son follows me and he's like, I know the secret. And I'm like, okay, well, don't tell your wife until, whatever it's time, but it was good. It was fun. I'll ingest and they're excited for it. So
that's amazing. One of the things I know about my community is that they love to pray. And so as this book gets out into the wilderness and it gets in the hands of more and more couples, what is the prayer that we can pray alongside you for what God is going to do through this book?
I appreciate that so much. I would say my prayer and hope for the book is that when you set it down, you have a renewed sense of hope in the possibility of happily ever after. I just see so many couples really I'm so sorry. That was my son calling. I see so many couples struggle with this idea that maybe happily ever after doesn't exist. Maybe this is just all there is. All of the just dumb stuff about marriage out there that, like, you get married and you're miserable and then you die, or, this is just how it is. The passion fades and, then you just muscle through it, whatever. Like, just my hope is that, you laugh at the stories, like, you identify with some of them. Like, for newlyweds, I hope that it's like a getting started / cautionary tale. And for those who have been married for long periods of time, I hope they'll find it humorous. I hope they'll see themselves in some of the stories and just have a lot of hope that, happily ever after is possible. Like, there is help available, and, you don't have to settle for mediocrity in your marriage. That you can have something extraordinary that you created together.
So good. I want to ask you one more question before I ask you where they can pick up a copy of the book. Your podcast, Secrets of Happily Ever After, you've been doing that for a long time. How many years have you been podcasting?
7.
Yeah, that's wild. And in podcasting world, that's like 100, right? So you started right before I did, right? Like, I started, you're going into year 6 for me. So what have you learned about putting content out into the world regularly for the last 7 years?
Gosh, I've learned that not everybody thinks like me. People have a lot of interesting opinions, and that's okay. That's totally fine.
Even if they're wrong.
No, yeah, I welcome their misguided, ideas. I'm just kidding. No, one of the things I've appreciated the most about podcasting is meeting people like you, being able to interview other experts and couples who do think differently, have different ideas, and just kind of like solidifying like my experience, being able to tell my story. I just think it's been a blessing. Like, it's the best way for me to kind of process through my experiences in life and marriage, and, put it out there, and people can think whatever they want. I think my husband's biggest concern when I started my podcast was like, ooh, people are going to not like this, like they're not going to agree with you, or, they're going to have a lot to say. He's a very private person.
Sure.
And I think through this 7 years, he's, I've been recognized, people are like, you look just like this podcaster, or like, people ask what I do, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I listen to your podcast. Or, we've been in the airport, we're in a hot tub in Hawaii, and somebody recognized me. And so, I think like through the years, he's gotten to see some of the positive impact that just my random thoughts on life and marriage have had on people. And so he appreciates it a lot more now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, I have one more question for you, but before I ask it, I know the bold ones are going to want to find you all over the interwebs. Where is the best place to pick up their copy of the book, Bad Marriage Advice?
Yeah, so you just go to badmarriageadvice.com. And if the book's not quite out yet, you can get on the waiting list. But if the book is out, it'll redirect you right to Amazon, where you can pick up a copy of the book, read some of it, leave a review, hopefully, and, let me know what you think.
That'd be awesome. Okay. Last question I love to ask people. Also, they should follow you on Instagram, because you're a fun follow on Insta. So, which I think is how we originally connected in a podcasting room, I think many years ago. So, okay. Last question, and we'll link to that in the show notes. Last question I love to ask people. It's an advice question. I invite you to go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice. And except I get to name the season of life that you're in. And it only makes sense given all that we covered today. I want to take you back to your wedding day. Before the crackers in bed comment, before everything else, this is the early morning. You're probably hanging out with your girls, getting everything ready. If you could just pull that younger version of you aside 23 years ago, sit knee to knee with her, hold her hands, and look her in the eye. What's the one piece of actual advice that you would give her about the journey she's going to go on?
Oh, I think I would have said, trust the process. Like the pain, like it's going to hurt at times, and it's going to be really scary, and being vulnerable and like actually giving yourself to another human, who has the power to, hurt you in all of the ways that hurt. Like, it will be healing. It will be magical. It will be painful, and just really just trust the process. Like I think I already said it, but all relationships are a constant process of harmony, disharmony, and repair.
Yeah.
And the real like powerful part of that cycle is the repair process. So, there's always going to be moments of dysregulation. There's always going to be times when we disagree. And if you can learn to skillfully repair, that's where you gain confidence. That's where you gain strength. That's where you gain resilience and really start to trust each other. And so, yeah, I wouldn't be afraid. I would say, don't be afraid of conflict. Trust the process. It's all going to be okay. Yeah. Ask for help when you need it. Ask for help when you need it. Don't walk this path alone. There are lots and lots of helpers.
Amen. Amen. That's so good. Monica, thank you so much for your willingness to be so generous with your time and just for all that you do to help keep marriages healthy. I deeply appreciate our friendship over the years.
And I'm so excited for your book as well. It's going to be so fun.
What a great conversation with Monica. I love her heart. I have really enjoyed getting to know her over the years. She is one of those people who I just call an internet friend, and I'm so thankful for her voice in my life. Make sure that you follow her on Instagram. Now let's get to the 3 and 5, 3 practical takeaways in 5 minutes or less. Number 1, connection requires consistency. Right? Even just 20 minutes of intentional daily conversation can dramatically improve emotional closeness. I'm finding in my own marriage that usually happens in the morning, right? Where we lean into a walk or some intentional time together. Such a good way to start the day. It really puts us on the same team. Number 2, conflict can lead to growth. I think a lot of us fear disagreement in our marriage. Instead, I think Monica really challenges us to use it as an opportunity to repair, learn, and even strengthen the bond that's between us. And number 3, intentionality wins every time. You know this, if you've been around here for any length of time, I'm huge on building disciplines that keep us in intentional practices. Marriage success doesn't come from luck. It comes from small, deliberate actions over an extended period of time. All right, let's revisit them. 3 and 5. Number 1, connection requires consistency. Number 2, conflict can lead to growth. And number 3, intentionality wins every time. Such a great dialogue. I can't wait to hear what you learned from today's episode. Shoot me an email, tony@twmilton.com. And hey, share this episode with your spouse, your partner. Create a plan, set a date to evaluate. So many good things in this episode. As always, forever thankful for you, my podcast family. If there's anything I can do, I'm easy to find. So until next time, remember, if you want to follow Jesus, you must be willing to move.